Many of you know this guy. He's become a political hero to conservatives across the country. I had the pleasure and the honor of sharing a stage with him at a Palin event a couple of years ago where he was amazing, lit up the audience of thousands. And I have to say, though, Jason, you really have had words with his opponent, so we might be a little biased in this one, right? You really do not like his opponent.
Yes, his opponent and I have gotten into, yeah, we've had quite
You've had some
altercation.
face-to-face, red-faced
altercations.
Yes. My next guest, Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli, candidate for governor of Virginia. Welcome to the Dr. Gina Show.
Well, it's good to be with you. And Jason, I wish I'd had some face-to-face opportunities with my opponent, but he is avoiding debates like crazy with us. So we haven't had any yet.
Yeah, well, I've heard a lot of rumors about that. And now, has he ultimately finally agreed to some, I thought I read?
He's agreed to one, and he had to be kind of drag kicking and screaming to it. It's the traditional first debate in Virginia, is the Virginia bar debate. It'll happen July 20th. It'll be live streamed on PBS's website because the moderator is Judy Woodruff. And we presume he'll come to the other big debate of the year, which is the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce, Fairfax being our largest county. 1 million of our 8 million people live there. And but that's it so far. We've challenged him to 15 debates. All around Virginia. You know, people pay less attention to these state races than the federal races, and it's very important to be in their neighborhood and talking to them about how one's own vision applies to their area. And I've talked about reducing marginal tax rates, paying for it by closing corporate loopholes and reducing the growth in government will spur job creation, and what that means in each region of Virginia, and he's refused to do that.
Well, what has the reaction been from other Virginia voters who are seeing that this man obviously has some reason why he just doesn't really want to meet face-to-face with you, at least not very often, and if he can't have plenty of time to prep?
Well, you know, it's still relatively early. People pay attention later in non-presidential races. I will say there are regions of the state that do feel like they're being ignored by him because of this, and I'm not happy about that. I'd rather us have an actual debate in those areas. Obviously, I think we'll do very well with our very positive job-creating, smaller government, limited government approach versus his, you know, pick the industries, give them your tax money, so they'll bribe them to come here. And that, which hasn't worked for him. I mean, he got paid to take his business to Mississippi instead of Virginia, and it's a failure. It's 1 year anniversary of opening their factory floors this Saturday, when he had predicted they would produce 10,000 electric cars. And as far as I know, at most they may have produced a couple of hundred. Could be wrong because they're not sharing much information. Much as he isn't sharing much information, I release my tax returns. He won't release his, even though last year he called on Mitt Romney to do it. Apparently it's okay for him to call on Republicans to do it, but it's not okay for Republicans to call on him to do it.
What? A Democrat double standard? Are you sure about that, Attorney
General?
No,
I'm very sure about it.
Now, speaking of debates, you have challenged, this is a little bit different, you have challenged Vice President Biden to debate you, and what are you getting on that? Is he afraid of you too?
Oh, I'm sure he is. I mean, he'll certainly, well, I'll not be petty, but it's interesting. People around the country should know lots of people moved to Northern Virginia to work in Washington. And, of course, Terry McAuliffe moved to Virginia with Bill Clinton. He was in charge of renting out the Lincoln bedroom. It was his idea. He was the purveyor of access for money to that administration, and he made a good living parlaying those relationships into his own get-rich-quick schemes, which he made money off of, though thousands of people lost their jobs and their investments. That's the path he's been on for 33 years. He's been a Washington party fundraiser. And so it shouldn't be a surprise that he's recruiting the other Washingtonians to come attack us while he won't stand up and go toe-to-toe to debate us. So we said, well, if Joe Biden's going to carry your water for you, maybe he'll debate us. And I'll give you another twist on it. I'll debate both of them. if they'll come do it.
2-on-1. Now that is gutsy, I have to tell you. Now, Biden and McAuliffe, of course, are the ticket that want to eliminate coal. What would this mean to the citizens of the Commonwealth, and what will you do differently?
You know, put it to you in personal terms. In Virginia, coal is mined in that part of our state that is in Appalachia, one of the poorest parts of America. They don't have other economic options. We don't have a diverse economy in Southwest Virginia. The per capita income is still very low. In some of those counties, it's well below $30,000 last time I looked per capita. Mm-hmm. And this war on coal in Virginia is a war on the poor, because those folks don't have other options. And the poorest part of our state is also served by a utility that gets 80% of its generation from coal. And so their electricity rates, as the president said, would necessarily skyrocket, and they can't afford that. Not only can't they afford it in their family budgets, but that eliminates the opportunity for a lot of businesses to grow or to come to Virginia, in that part of Virginia where we need him the most, where Terry McAuliffe said when he ran for governor 4 years ago we need him the most. And yet he supports these policies that will drive businesses out of Virginia, will drive businesses out of America, and will reduce the opportunities of our middle class and of our poor from reaching into the middle class. And I think that's a tragedy, and I think people need to remember that those of us that are fighting against this overreaching federal regulation, we're fighting for the poor. We're fighting for their opportunity to move up into the middle class, and we're fighting for the middle class's opportunity to keep a little more of their own money and to have jobs, and that their kids will have jobs when they get out of high school, when they get out of college. That's what I'm fighting for. And Terry McAuliffe supports policies that will line his own pocket and will also eliminate those opportunities in Virginia.
Many candidates, though, have shied away from the social issues. You have made many of the social issues that are in the Republican platform a centerpiece. You've not shied away. You've not seemed afraid of them. Why is that? Why is this so important to you? And what are you hearing from voters about your not hiding from these social issues?
Well, certainly, I'm someone who believes that life begins at conception, and that every life is precious, and we should do what we can to protect them. And I also support protecting marriage as well. And I will say, I wouldn't say that I make them a centerpiece of the campaign. They're just fundamental principles that I don't back off on. And I think that's pretty important. I think a lot of voters are used to people wish-washing around. My opponent will tell the audience in front of him what he thinks they want to hear to try to get elected governor. I mean, a lot of this race is a salesman, a used car salesman, versus an engineer. I'm an engineer. And even Bill Clinton said of Terry McAuliffe, one of his best friends said, well, I'd buy a car from Terry. Well, but I don't know about a used car.
There's an endorsement.
That's from Bill Clinton. So that's what I'm running against.
Wow.
So,
well,
we're going to keep pushing our positive jobs message, and we won't back off the fundamental principles that I believe were part of the initial fabric of this country that have made a great foundation for the greatest country in the world.
One more question for you. Tell us something that voters don't know about you that you haven't said anyplace else that you'd like people to know.
Well, one thing that I don't think people know is that when I leave as Attorney General in January after 4 years, one of my unique accomplishments will have been I will have helped exonerate more wrongfully convicted felons than any Attorney General in the history of Virginia, which is something I'm very passionate about. That will include the guy who served more time as an innocent man in prison in Virginia than anybody else. He served 27 years. And I went in and argued using a law that I voted with Democrats on when I was back in the state Senate. I'm the first AG to go into court and use it without scientific evidence to exonerate someone who is wrongfully convicted. So it's kind of outside the box.
That's outside the box. That is not where I thought you would go with that. So, well, we appreciate you taking time out of such a busy race to be on the show with us. Tell folks how they can find out more and get involved in your campaign. And yes, I'm going to say it, where they can contribute.
At Cuccinelli.com. It's spelled just like it sounds, at least in South Italy. Cuccinelli.com. They can follow us on Facebook. We're at Ken Cuccinelli for Twitter, and we'd love to have them on board. So please come on board. Facebook, on the web at Cuccinelli.com. We'd love to see you there.
Keep us posted on
Thank
how
you all.
it goes. Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli, candidate for governor of Virginia.